Good evening, everybody. It is Friday evening. It's June 1st, 2018. It's the Gold, Goats, and Guns Hour here on YouTube and Periscope. My name's Tom Luongo. I hope you've all had a pretty good week. We've got a lot to talk about. I've got my I Love Canada cup. Not that I'm crazy about Canada right now, but at least Trump's not crazy about Canada. I'm still a big. So let's get to this, shall we? Because the Italians have pulled off something really quite brilliant, and it's going to pay a lot of dividends long term. And what I'm talking about at this point is we have a new government in Italy. That government is fundamentally Eurosceptic. Good evening, user 13. Happy Friday. It's fundamentally Eurosceptic and populist in a way that even Brexit doesn't quite cover. And I want you to kind of really wrap your head around that, because these guys aren't in power 12 hours. And the current and the guy that was supposed to be was the original choice for finance minister. I'm going to pull this up and I'm going to read you some quotes here from this guy, because frankly, this is awesome. So the newly appointed the guy Paolo Savona, who is who's kind of terribly anti-German, apparently, and he's already come out swinging. Right, you're gonna love this. He came out swinging, and he has been described as suicidally anti-German. I love this, because honestly, now that these guys are in power, the amount of hatred they're going to get, the amount of the amount of debt shaming, and the whole lazy Club Med meme is going to show up. Right, they're going to start the propaganda war against the Italians. Now, this is coming. There's no way to stop this process, and that's the next leg of this. So they've already gone on the offensive before everybody can get onto before Brussels and the EU media and all of it can really get onto really get over on them, right? And try and grab the narrative. So Mr. Savona, Paolo Savona, who was the guy that was the finance minister who was rejected by the Italian president and forced us to wait 5 days before we finally got an Italian government. He came out today and he said that it's not Italy that should leave the euro. It's Germany. Which is absolutely correct, actually. I remember Jim Rickards talking about this years ago, saying, actually, the right course of action for the EU is for Germany to reinstate the Deutschmark and then leave everybody else to live with the euro, because they're all far. So the rest of the euro countries are far closer to each other in terms of capital efficiency and all that, and labor utilization, than the Germans are. The Germans are a big anomaly in Europe. Everybody talks about how Germany is the EU. Well, how about the EU doesn't need Germany, or the EU would be better off without Germany? And Savona just ripped the Band-Aid off this afternoon and just said they should leave the euro. Their surplus is a detriment to the proper workings of the European Union. Now, that's fantastic, honestly. I mean, that's really, really good. And it makes me, you know, it really is the right way of looking at it. And I'm going to shut down a lot of my stuff going on. This stuff down because I'm dropped frame. Going on in the background, sucking up bandwidth. So, it'll come back. Yeah, I think I had way too much stuff going on in the background. So I'm just shut a bunch of stuff down. Let's see if YouTube comes back online. Nope. I'm going to restart. All right, I'm going to restart. I'll be right back. All right, let's try this. There we go. Yeah, I had a... All right, well, good enough. So, Savona coming out... Now, he's not finance minister, right? Giovanni Tria is finance minister. But they're like peas in a pod. And I love the fact that Salvini yesterday turned around and said, okay, Savona's not acceptable as finance minister. How about this other hard ass? Yeah, there was something sucking up bandwidth. I'm not sure what it was. It was probably, it doesn't matter. I shut everything down. I was watching it's not getting any better. I don't think it's my wife, and I didn't think it was my daughter. So I apologize. It's like everything else. It's just, I keep forgetting that I don't have great bandwidth. And it is what it is. All right. So, look at the way Salvini and company played this game. It's really quite impressive. They submit a government proposal to Mattarella, the president, in a way knowing that he's probably going to, at some point, put up some opposition to whatever it is they propose. On Sunday, he vetoes the thing over Paolo Savona as finance minister because, well, he's too anti-Euro, and that's not conducive to effectively the general welfare of Italy, and I can't sign off on it. Go back to the table. And they probably could have gone to the equivalent of the Italian Supreme Court and challenged Mattarella on constitutional grounds. That would have actually been playing into the EU's hands. Because then they could have tied it up, and then they could have got the Supreme Court to they could have tied this thing up for weeks while this went on, and they could have demonized them in the press, and it would have been a whole, horrible shit show. They would have won on principle and lost the war, right? They didn't do that. They waited. The ECB refused to buy any Italian bonds for 2 days, and the Italian bond yield shot up like they were sitting on solid rocket boosters, for Christ's sake, and they were going to the moon, right? Everything was looking horrible, and they were trying to scare 5-star in the league to come to their senses. The German EU budget director, Gunther Oettinger, comes out and says, this will teach the Italians, the markets will teach the Italians not to elect populist governments. And all the finger wagging and the chin wagging was all starting. And then on Wednesday, there were all these articles seeded all across the mainstream media. Reuters, UPI, AP, Reuters, AP, Der Spiegel, the British press, tabloid press. the rest of them, Bloomberg, all saying there might be some splits going on between the 5-star and the league, and you know, and all this, and knowing full well that the headlines, that the algos, that the bank trading algorithms, they're out there, computers, they're out there trading the headlines at the same time the ECB kicks on the buy switch and starts plunging Italian bond yields. They start buying the euro. You know, they start trying to push everything and do the whole management of perspective economics thing. See, this is what the market wants. They did the same thing during the 2008 bailout thing. Remember when in 2008, when the House was voting on the big TARP bill the first time and they voted it down, they wheeled in big fucking television sets to scare Congress into voting for the thing as the banks were tanking the Dow. Because the Dow was down 700 points. Look, it's down 700 points. We have to vote for this bill. What are you doing? It's the whole world is going to die. I mean, it's the most fucking ridiculous shit you ever saw. And they tried that same weak sauce shit this week with Salvini and Di Maio. And on Thursday, Salvini says, okay, you don't like Paolo Savona? Here's Giovanni Tria. Guess what? He's as big a hard ass as Savona is. And Friday morning, Mattarella signs off on the government and they take office. 12 hours after, not 12 hours after that, Savona's running his mouth saying, Germany should leave the EU. Fuck these people. They're the ones that are causing all the problem. Words of the subject. Freaking Nazis. I mean, when you really stop to think about it, User 13, you're right. They rope-a-dope the EU. They sat there and they just, okay, fine. I mean, look, what are you going to do? You're going to scare these guys? They already know what's going on. They already know what the score is. They know how this works. They've seen this shit before. This playbook has been run before. And remember what I always say. I haven't had a chance to say it in a while, and I get to say it now again. These people are really smart, but they're not very clever. They always do the same thing. Every time. They don't have a plan. They don't have a second script. They don't have another way of attacking of trying to scare people. And yes, you don't scare Sicilians. We scare you. I'm very little Sicilian. Not a lot. I'm mostly Italian. A little bit of Sicilian. About 1/16, I think. My grandmother was a quarter Sicilian. I loved my grandmother. She was awesome. She was a quarter Sicilian. She wasn't always awesome. All right. Yeah, Kate's one of the few people in my family who will actually hear me say nice things. So, yeah. It's actually really quite funny, right? It's really funny to see how this is played out. So they're going into the weekend with this. Like, oh, Merkel, shove it. It's on, baby. I'm dead serious. I haven't been this happy about European politics since Syriza won. And then they wound up folding. On the same day, the thug in Spain, Mariano Rajoy, is no longer prime minister. He was voted out in a vote of no confidence this morning as the Basques and the Catalonians cast the deciding votes to axe his ass. The socialist is in power. Populist revolutions in these countries taking all different forms. In Italy, it was like the MAGAPEDs and the Bernie Bros got together. In Spain, it was a really hard push left. I'm not crazy about that, but anything to get the EU on their back foot is good. Because at the end of the day, one of two things has to happen. And I think Salvini and Di Maio are okay with either outcome. They're okay with Italeave, right? They're okay with, hey, look, we'll just leave the euro, we'll devalue we'll reintroduce the lira, we'll devalue the debt, yada, yada, yada. The other option is a formal, final, honest to God restructuring of the entire Eurozone around a singular debt issuer and a consolidation of all of the sovereign debt of Europe under one house, with only the ECB or with only one person being able to issue debt. Meaning true financial integration or dissolution. And the people who are most against pure financial integration have been and always will be the Germans. The Germans understand the dynamic here. Okay? The Germans understand that they get the good end of the deal. At least the German politicians and the German industrialists do. The German people have not been told. They don't understand what's going on. You can see it in the way they vote. They haven't been told, look, you guys are living high on the hog and invoking the moral high ground because you're creditors and they're all debtors, and that seems that fits your worldview. But I got news for you. You're doing it via currency arbitrage. You're doing it via internal EU mercantilism. And as I always say, mercantilism works great for a while, but eventually the internal contradictions come home to roost. All right, so User 13 asks, Bilderberg will be in Turin next week. Are you expecting larger than usual protests? It's a good bet. I'd bet on it. I don't know, but that's going to be an interesting time. Do you think financial integration will happen? Suzanne's asking on Periscope. I don't know. I know that they'd rather have. I know that Macron and, to a lesser extent, Merkel want a grand army of the EU first. They want an independent EU foreign policy first. But the German people do not want financial integration. Most of Northern Europe doesn't, not just Germany. I hate to just sing off the Germans here. Don't kid yourselves. The Dutch don't want it, and all of the Northern European countries don't want it. But Germany is the one that benefits the most from the current arrangement. So of course they're the ones who are going to say no. Jambo, so Jambo is telling us on YouTube that the media in Ireland is already in fear-mongering mode, blaming the pesky Italians for rocking the boat. Exactly. Well, guess what? They've been doing the same thing to the Brits for the past 2 years over Brexit. It's the same thing. Okay, so now let's get into the next question. And the next question from DX History Lover is as follows. What do you think will happen with the trade war? Now, this is interesting. We were talking, Halsey and I were talking about this last night, and he made a point that I had missed, and I can't believe I missed it, which is that, remember, only the countries that are on the euro are really going to be affected the most by the tariffs. I have not talked about Portugal because the other ones have their own currencies. Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, right? They all have their own currencies. And so it's going to be fascinating to watch investment money go preferentially to Eastern Europe now. Italy's looking at the same situation going, if we get out of the euro, we have a real opportunity to gain a massive advantage over the rest of Europe. Now all of a sudden, Italeave is a real, not just possibility, but it's an actual, honest to God, financial incentive. And I can see why Trump is doing this, because he's obviously telling Germany and France to piss off. So that's a really fascinating angle on this. And I think that there's the potential here for a deal. I have a blog up on my site over at Gold, Goats, and Guns, and I've got a link to it in the description of the video, talking about the bare bones of this, and how there's a potential here for a deal. Italy is sitting here with deals aplenty in front of them. You've got a deal with Trump over you got a deal with Trump over using the tariffs as a wedge issue. You've got a potential deal with Merkel, right? Juncker comes out today. Jean-Claude Juncker comes out today and starts talking about how we have to normalize relationships with Russia. Well, that's a way of him saying to Salvini, okay, you're going to veto the sanctions for us and not make it look like we did it. Not that Trump is going to be under any illusions as to what's going on here, but Salvini is going to be like, okay, what are you going to get me to do that? I heard you, Octopus. I haven't had a chance to answer that question, and I wanted to finish what I was talking about. I will get to the questions because I see them. I can see I'm doing this through Restream, so I see all the comments as they come through. Just put your comments up, and I'll get to them as I go along. Should they sink the migrant boats is what he's asking for those who are on YouTube. No, I don't think they should sink the migrant boats. I think they should just close the border. And I'm positive that Salvini will do just that. He is now Interior Minister. He's in charge of immigration. Grinchy, I'm going to say I think it's a little more complicated than that. But Trump is definitely has his policies aligned with Israel's at this point. But in many ways, what we've seen in Syria this week, which I didn't really want to talk about tonight, but maybe we'll talk about it later. I talked about it extensively with Halsey last night on Halsey Live, so you can check that out. We talked about it at length. The framework for the grand bargain in the Middle East is coming together. That's the good news. That's the short answer, and that's the good news. So, Drag68 is asking, will the sanctions on Russia be extended? That's the interesting part. This coalition government wants to end the sanctions on Russia. Because that's not necessary. You can just send the ships home. You don't have to drown people to stop this. These people are coming over because they're being paid by George Soros to show up. And it's all a pressure tactic. You just say no and just close the ports to these people, and that's the end of it. Dude, I don't want to talk about the USS Liberty. It's 40 fucking years old. Seriously, we're not talking about the Jews tonight. Okay? We're not doing it. Christ, the fucking alt-right's here tonight. Okay. I don't want to talk about it tonight. You guys can talk about this stuff all you want. It's not necessary to the discussion. Right? Here we go. I can't block them. You're going to have to. But I would block the Octopus 8 in a heartbeat. Okay? All right. No, I don't want to talk about it tonight because it's not germane to the discussion. And the situation is far more complicated than gas the kikes. That's why. The Russian sanctions are a major part of the major part of the Italian coalitions excuse me. Lifting the Russian sanctions is a major plank of the Italian coalition's platform. They want this. They want these. They want the relations with Russia normalized. Thank you, Drag, for for watching me on Fault Lines the other day. I really appreciate it. The Russians are putting on the charm offensive. The Germans need the Nord Stream pipeline. Bulgaria is now begging for a re-up of South Stream. Getting a leg off of the Turkish Stream pipeline directly over into Bulgaria. If you look at Gazprom's earnings report this month, guys, it was insane. And they're doing that in the face of still building 3 freaking major pipelines at the same time, and they're still making money hand over fist. It's an unreal situation. So do I think they'll get lifted? I think with this government in Italy, the odds of that happening are really, really high. Now, the question is whether it's used as a bargaining chip to get either some concessions for Italy on sanctions and tariffs, one, from Trump, or in order to extend them, because Trump wants them extended, or on the other side of it, for Merkel to use it as a bargaining chip to get something out of Merkel. Okay. So Joanne Leone asks, is the Trump trade war on EU related to his administration knowing they'll nix the Russian sanctions? Sorry if stupid question, haven't been following closely. No, it's not a stupid question. I don't know that it's a done deal that the Russian sanctions are going to be lifted in July by the EU. Okay. I think that, again, I really think this is a bargaining chip that is, it's going to be a bargaining chip over the course of the next 6 weeks. I really think that that's what's going on, or the next 4 weeks. I guess it's actually very early in July when they're going to, I think it's like on July 7th or July 8th, if I remember correctly. I think that the sanctions actually technically end on the 30th, and they have a few days to vote on them or whatever. I agree with you, TX History Lover. I really do believe that Trump is in many ways trying to weaken the EU. I'm not sure if the trade war is the right way of going about it. I don't, as a free trader, I'm not a big fan of tariffs. I'm not a big fan of this stuff at all, but I understand the idea of using them as a pressure tactic in order to get the EU to get people to reform their sanctions policy, but God knows. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I think the Germans in general, see, here's the gig. Okay. Let's back up for a second and let's now talk about U.S. domestic policy, because I think to understand what's happening in Europe and how they're going to react to sanctions, thanks to Trump's sanctions on Iran after now that he's out of the nuclear deal. Now bear with me for a second. This might take a bit. I think that all of that that response, right, lifting the Russian sanctions, defying Trump on Iranian sanctions, right? All of this stuff. And, of course, the burgeoning sovereign debt crisis that's happening because now you've got the Italians and the Spanish throwing credit markets into complete turmoil and currency markets in turmoil and putting pressure on central banks on both sides of the Atlantic. Don't let anybody kid you. But I think that those responses are going to be governed by what's happening domestically. So now let's look at what's going on domestically. If Trump is actually winning domestically against his opponents, okay, then, and I think that he is. I really think that at some point, Trump is he's winning in a way. The signs are all there that he's about to roll large portions of the Obama administration in ways that we could only, we've only been like, be willing to hope that would happen. I think that stuff's very close. And the big question is now whether the elite oligarchy behind the scenes are still looking at the EU as their globalist fortress, right? Because after Trump was elected, it's very obvious that they tried to pump Merkel up as the leader of the free world and to marginalize Trump, and they'll try and destroy the United States, and thinking that they would be able to do that. And I don't think that I'm not quite sure whether they can still run that plan, because Merkel and Macron and now Italy, which is the core of the EU, and really the Brits, they're all fracturing and going in different directions. Merkel's got a weak cartel government in Italy, in Germany. Sorry, Macron has a weak government in France, even though he won by a large margin, and he's got a large legislative margin. He doesn't have a lot of popular support. So the EU politically is fracturing in a way that's very ugly, even though these people firmly believe that they can game the rules and ignore the elections and still do what they want. And part of that hubris and part of that arrogance, I think, is still playing out behind the scenes. So if Trump continues to push and he starts winning in the US, I think a lot of that, for lack of a better term, the Bilderberg group or whatever you want to call them, those guys are all going to continue to shift their weight behind the EU. And at that point, they could easily to stick it in Trump's eye, open relations back up with Russia. Grinchy, I'm Italian. I'll answer that question. I'm Italian. I've mentioned it multiple times. I'm not Jewish. I was raised Catholic. I'm not Catholic. My mom was an ex-nun, for fuck's sake. Okay? Octopus, you guys are never taking power. Just get that out of your head. So the yeah. User 13 says ex-nun. Wow, that explains a lot. Yes. So yeah, Macron owns the geriatric crowd. Yeah, well, he likes much older women. So Green Penguin's asking, but I thought the cabal hates Russia. Well, no, I think part of the cabal hates Russia, and I do fundamentally believe that the neocons hate Russia. That there's a lot of and I got to choose my words carefully here. That a lot of the, for lack of a better term, the Israeli neoconservatives hate Russia, but at the end of the day, Lieberman is freaking Russian. He's a Russian Jew. Green Penguin, I don't know. I mean, I'm spinning that scenario out, but to me, it feels like this is possible here, that they would give Merkel the green light to lift sanctions on Russia over Crimea, because at the end of the day, you can't stop it at this point, and if they need the EU to survive, and it's something close to its current form, then they're gonna need Russian gas, and they're going to need the normalized relationship with Russia at the end of the day. You just have to understand that. Okay. So, that's part of what I think is going on here. So, Thordoom is asking, and I'm not getting the YouTube comments coming directly through. So I'm having a look on YouTube for. Do you think Thordoom is asking, what do you think of Italy saying Germany should be forced to the EU and hi? I already covered it actually, like at the outset, to be honest with you. I think it's fantastic. I think going on the offensive against Brussels is exactly the right tack to take. You don't go in there and beg them for debt relief, like the Greeks said. You don't go hat in hand to these people. You go out and you attack them and you say, you're the fucking problem. You guys are the ones that are bankrupting everybody. You're intransigence over an actual, honest to God, political and economic union, proper union, and not this theocratic or practically technocratic, theocratic. It winds up being the same fucking thing because these people believe in Marxism as a freaking religion, so it might as well be a theocracy. That going after them and saying you guys are the freaking problem, that's the big one. Oh, it's cool, dude. I understand. You're late to the party. You can't be here for the whole thing. Fair enough. I don't mind. I don't mind covering that angle again because that just makes me freaking laugh. Because you have no idea how great it is to be Italian right now. You really don't. I mean, it's like watching The Godfather again for the first time. It's like, this is really cool watching my people just fucking take it to the scourge, I think, of the planet, which is the EU. And frankly, y'all can say what you want. The alt-right thinks it's all about Israel and the Jews, and I think the freaking EU is the fucking problem. Between them and the freaking and the city of London, that's the big problem here. Yeah, Drag a 68 is saying the neocons are still pushing the BS that they can send LNG to Europe to compete with the Russians through a pipe. It's not possible. It's not. You can't. The cost to cool off and liquefy LNG costs more than it costs the Russians to pipe it to Germany. Okay? And Octopus 88, Batman, always. So. No, the EU is the problem. Because, so, what is your opinion on mass immigration in Europe? Now, the Truth Earth is asking on YouTube. What's your opinion on mass immigration in Europe and the white genocide? My opinion on the mass immigration to Europe is that it's been a complete disaster. It's absolutely, it's unconscionable. I'm a libertarian, guys. I'm a hardcore anarcho-libertarian. For those of you who are new, okay, I am a hardcore anarcho-libertarian. If you ask me in my heart of hearts what I think about immigration, I will say the same. I will say what I always say. Peaceable people traversing arbitrary political borders is bullshit. The problem is, define peaceable people. We live in an age of governments. We live in an age of comparative advantages and all these things and different currencies and all this crap. I don't agree with any of it, but it exists and it's real. And some of those countries have comparative advantages for people to cross the border to get handouts and steal from the people who live there, the property rights, the property owners and the rights holders of the people who live there. Who are already being stolen from by their government, who then redistributes their wealth, which they stole, and give it to people who just are arbitrarily across the border because they think it's a good idea. Fuck that. That's bullshit. You cannot have open borders and maintain a welfare state. You cannot have open borders and maintain a warfare state. You cannot have a foreign policy that kills and displaces millions of people around the world and then get angry when they show up on your doorstep and say, hey, give me a handout. Hey, how about you stop overthrowing their governments overseas like Hillary did in Honduras, which every summer Soros buses them across frickin' Mexico to bring them to the border to turn it into a political issue, to gaslight a bunch of friggin' granola-eating morons in fucking Portland, Oregon. That's what's going on. And Merkel did the same thing in Europe in order to improve her standing, to improve her, what am I looking for? Her image after shaking down Greece like a fucking mafia, like a mafia don. It was never, you know, and then to turn around and say, how can you say that, and how can one person make a decision for the entirety of Europe and then say, well, you all have to take, you know, a quota? Like, no, I don't. Viktor Orban is like, no, I'm not doing it. We'd be better, User 13 says we'd be better off selling our gas to South America than to sell it to Europe. Not going to argue there. Right. Remove Green Penguin says, look, there's more mass immigration to the U.S. than Europe ever had. Remove all the welfare and the problem is 90% fixed. Right. You actually don't even need to close the border. I mean, we should have strict immigration policy. If we don't, our immigration policy has always ebbed and flowed over time. My life is a perfect example of one that would not exist, certainly in its current form, without the liberal immigration policies that we had at the turn of the 20th century. But we were at a place where we could afford it. My family all ran from the rise of fascism in Italy. Okay? I think AFD is doing just fine, TX History Lover, and I think they're going to continue to do very, very well. So I've got no problem with people. I have no problem with controlling immigration and controlling the border as long as we have this massive welfare state and as long as we have this massive warfare state. Cut the U.S. Cut the entitlement programs and get rid of all the wealth redistribution. The fact that the United States government wields as much power as it does is simply out of as a consequence of our immense wealth and our immense tax base, which is insanity. That money should be in the hands of Americans. It should not be in the hands of our government. They spend it terribly. It's a fundamentally bad system that fundamentally destroys wealth, misappropriates capital, and destroys lives. And if that's what y'all are angry about, if y'all are angry, that's what you should be angry about. Not about specific ethnicities. It's not about Jews or North Africans or Syrians. It's not about any of that shit. All of these people, all of these mass immigration, all these mass migrations are a consequence of policy to create a specific outcome. I've been saying this for 20 years. This is nothing new. So, like it, don't like it, don't, you know, that's the reality. Fix the underlying problems. Don't fix band-aids. Don't fix symptoms. Mass immigration is a symptom of a deeper problem. Fix the deeper problem. The deeper problem is the welfare state. The deeper problem is the redistribution of wealth. The deeper problem is central banking, which creates a fundamentally unfair system by paying banks a vig to print money. Right? I mean, it's not reasonable. And it's what everybody is abreacting to. We all are. And part of the reason why everybody's so freaking angry about this left-right divide and on all of these issues, it has to do with the fundamental, oh, God damn it. Jesus fucking Christ. Banking system is not all owned by Jews. Got news for you. Otto freaking mighty. So, I've already argued this shit with you fucking people. The bigger problem is not who owns the banking system. The bigger problem is people understanding that the banking system is bullshit. Doesn't matter who owns it. What matters is that we have accepted the idea that this is the right way to run, to create and run a currency, or different currencies. That's the problem. It won't go away tomorrow if you take all the Jews out of the banking system and put different people in there, and put Greeks in or put Italians in. I've got news for you. The incentives are exactly the same. Humans are exactly the same. There's no fundamental difference between Jews and Italians when it comes to economic incentives. They both react to them the same way. You guys are the dumbest bunch. You guys are about as dumb as a box of hammers. I mean, really dumb. I just want to insult the fuck out of you so you'll go away. Really, you guys are just fucking stupid. That's what I think of you. But, you know, I've always thought that of skinheads. So, you know, what else is new? All right. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, go read chapter 10 of The Road to Serfdom. There we go. All right. So the long-term effects here is the long-term effect here ultimately is that I still believe fundamentally, should we talk about movies? I love This Is Maggie's Friday night. We should talk about movies. I don't not really want to. The bigger issue here, the big one, and this we transition over to what's happening in Syria, is Rockwell's ghost. You will not insult me. You're too fucking stupid to insult me. You might as well leave. Okay. When you start to really look at all of this, what's happening? It's all happening. There's so many different factions competing against each other at this point. It's crazy, right? It's fantastic. And the so to watch all of these groups now under tremendous pressure they're making mistakes left and right. Hillary's making mistakes in how she's leaning on people to make them talk. Just wait. So I'm so interested to see what happens with Harvey Weinstein. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So yeah, user 13, I have to agree with you. My respect for Syrians grow every day as well. They refuse to give up these people. And when they fired back at the Israelis 3 weeks ago, that was your changing. That was the change. That was the change. You guys are just ab reacting now. It's just really funny. It's just really funny. I mean, I'm going to mention Harvey Weinstein. They're going to call him a Jew. Who's Weinstein? What the fuck, are you dumb? So, when Halsey and I were talking about this last night, it was like when Netanyahu was in Moscow on May 9th for Victory Over Europe celebration. They struck the deal to make sure that Syria was not going to get S-300s. Everybody was calling Putin a traitor. Right? The Russians didn't respond to the egregious Israeli attack on Iranian forces and Syrian forces all over Damascus earlier that week. You have the massacre in Gaza, which was a massacre. Horrible. Was Syria firing or Iran? No. Niederheim, seriously, it was the Syrians. They took credit for it. They were proud of it. Okay, the Israelis said it was Iran. It was not Iran. The Syrians came out and said it was them, the Russian Ministry of Defense, who is the only one you should listen to in any of these altercations, because they actually produce stuff that can be verified by other people. Okay? Right. So you guys are all jumping where I'm about to go where I am. So the people on YouTube are jumping forward and talking about Dara and everything else. So I'm going to talk about this in a minute. So all of this stuff happened. And if you remember, 3 weeks ago, I was screaming that Trump is, in the pay of the friggin' neocons and he's doing Israel's bidding and it's going to be ugly and he should not be trying to go for regime change in Iran because it's not going to work anyway and all of that stuff. And so what's happening is, and I think that the reason we're getting the deals that we're getting today, which is that we've got the Syrian army is going to be allowed to take Daraa and they're going to be allowed to move back up to the border of the Golan Heights, which is awesome. That's exactly what needs to happen. That will fulfill the Russians' requirement to restore the territorial integrity of Syria, which has been de facto truth since 1967. Regardless of whether you think the Israelis should control the Golan Heights or not, at the end of the day, de facto is that's not Syria. The Golan Heights are not Syria anymore. They're Israel and they're in Israel and the United States protectorate because they want because Genie Energy wants the oil, and that's where it is. There's nothing you can do about it. Get over it. I think Assad is good with this. Putin is perfectly good with this because everybody gets a little of what they want. So that deal does not happen if the Syrians don't fire missiles into the Golan Heights and the Israelis can't shoot them down, which is what happened. And it wasn't 20 rockets. It was more like 60. Okay. So, no. And Syria east of the Euphrates has not been restored, and it's not going to be restored first. So let's talk about Daraa is going to be dealt with. Idlib is going to be dealt with. The Syrian Arab Army is going to be able to use is going to be able to use that and a deal what they made with the Turks to allow the Turks to temporarily control the area between Afrin and Manbij and shut the border down, while the Syrian army and the Russians wipe out the rest of the Salafist head choppers in Idlib. And then Idlib will be taken care of. Daraa will be taken care of. Idlib will be taken care of. And then we're going to start dealing with the Kurdish zones east of the Euphrates River. Moreover, I also read a report, I was on Russia Insider the other day. What's also very important is that there's been a deal made for the United States to remove themselves from Al-Tanf at the Iraqi, Jordanian, Syrian confluence down there where we are. And we've been given aid and comfort to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in that area for months. And if that base is turned back over to the Syrian, if that area is turned back over to Syria, that's a big concession. That starts the whole process. Now, if Iran at the same time begins to move the IRGC forces, their forces they have in Syria, out of Syria and bring them home, which the Iranians have stated categorically they want to do anyway, then Trump can start the process of saying, yep, no longer do we need to be in Syria. But that's not going to happen until after the midterm elections. I don't think we'll start pulling out of there. And what Trump is hoping for, he wants to keep the area east of the Euphrates because he wants to be able to put maximum potential pressure on Iran to behave themselves. Otherwise, we're going to attack and we're going to fire and fury and John Bolton and all of this bullshit. So I really do think that that's the scenario as it stands now. We're going to have to wait until after it may be Thordoom that he was saying is that he's heard the same thing and that Israel told the U.S. to let it go. I think Putin will put the law down and said, look, this is the best deal you're going to get. You're going to get, this is the deal you're going to get. You're going to be able to keep the Golan Heights. Syrian army and us are going to guarantee that border. Now, Iran and Hezbollah will not operate there. And will not operate there. I don't think that Iran wants to operate there anymore. I think Iran doesn't want to have doesn't want to support that war, especially if Trump is putting a trade war on them. Right. I think part of the reason why Trump is going to put on as strong a trade war as possible. I know John Bolton is horrible, Maggie. There's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I don't like it. But this is the scenario we have right now. Look, in 6 weeks, it may change. Once or 2 months, it may change when the sanctions hit Iran and we start to see what is happening. And we start to see what happens after that. That's actually a really good point, Joanne. Well, I guess Ben's talking about Iran's deep commitment to expanding Shia control in Syria. I don't know that I understand that's a big deal, and I understand that that's a dynamic here, but you have to understand that Assad, at the end of the day, has to decide who's his better ally. And I agree that Iran is gaining control, is gaining influence in Iraq, and I don't think that Trump's maximum pressure plan is going to work at all. I think the Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians have the game plan to resist any, and the real war here is not physical, it's financial. Which gets to Joanne's point about the attacks in Syria make American weapons look terrible. And they are, because the Pantsir S-1 and S-2 anti-missile systems did yeoman's work against most of the American missiles. True, Ben. Iran's obligations are not to Assad, but to the Shia minority groups in Syria, like Hezbollah in Lebanon. But remember, the Shia in Lebanon are now in charge. Hezbollah has a super majority. So I think that, Joanne, I think you're now hitting the heart of the issue for Israel. That they don't feel confident in their anti-missile systems, that the Iron Dome doesn't work, and that their pilots are not as good as they aren't invulnerable. Which is why Netanyahu is desperate to keep the S-300s out of Syria, because he knows damn well that the Russians can shoot them down. Can shoot all of his planes down, and then he has nothing. And then strategically, and then their tactical and strategic position is terrible. No. You can't get my opinion on white pride. Ben, I wouldn't worry too much about Saudi Arabia's influence in Syria at this point. I'm thinking that the Saudis are going to have their own troubles in about 6 to 9 months. That will probably blow that entire country up. If the pressure policy against Iran doesn't work and Iran survives, then Saudi Arabia will be in a very, very ugly position. So, do I think Iran eventually will plug into the Turk Stream pipeline? They're developing They're developing the North Pars gas field along with now CNPC, China National Petroleum Company. Used to be Total, but Total is, they're the French. They surrender first and then go home. Right? They go home first and then surrender. They can't possibly surrender fast enough. Dude, I think Benjamin Netanyahu is the most dangerous man on the planet. So I don't know what's going on with the Saudi prince. This is actually, you guys are, I'm having a hard time keeping up tonight. This is actually kind of cool. I think Iran, Ben, don't get me wrong, I think Iran survives this with no problem. I think that the Russians, the Iranians, and the Chinese, this is what I was trying to get at earlier, that I think what they've done here is they've executed, I've said this before, they've executed a brilliant kind of classic Russian cauldron where they present a potential weak spot for their enemy to flood through, and then they encircle from behind. Another way of looking at it is that Putin plays geopolitical judo, and he's just waiting for his opponent to overextend himself, and then he throws him. Putin's done this many times in the past, and I think that he's allowing Trump to run as hard a sanctions and hybrid war policy as possible, and then wait for it to boomerang back on them when it doesn't work, and to continue to play the financial war of attrition against the United States and run us dry. And the backlash to all of this will be an ever rising dollar and rising interest rates in the U.S. with the Fed trying to break the European Union at the same time, with Trump trying to break the European Union, the Fed needing to raise interest rates. Otherwise, we're going to have a pension crisis in this country that's going to make 2008 look like a fucking Amish barn raising. And that once that starts, right? Once a rising dollar starts to really hurt American exports and American bottom lines, as our multinational corporations earn less money because they're getting crushed in foreign exchange, that once that really starts, the Chinese are just going to continue to push. They're going to push through yuan devaluation. I had an article on Strategic Culture Foundation earlier in the week that's what's going to do. Why does the U.S. want to break the EU? The U.S. doesn't. Trump does. I do believe that Trump wants to break Germany's stranglehold over the EU. I think his instincts on this are correct. So all of this is really, what Trump is trying to do is he's in a sense, it's not even that he's trying to break the EU. What he's trying to do is get them to submit. Right. What Trump is doing with all of his policies right now is to get everybody in the world to submit as much as possible to American exceptionalism. He's running that script, and he thinks that he's going to be able to play all of our massive financial weapons and deploy them all. And I mean deploy them all. And lash out like a dying empire always does right before it implodes. And Putin's just going to give him a push. The Chinese, and they're going to use Iran as the cauldron in order to get Trump so focused on trying to get regime change in Iran that he overcommits to policies against even his allies that effectively destroys the Americans' ability. It destroys the U.S.'s ability to form any kind of relationships with anybody. Germany owns the EU. The EU is Germany. They have by far the most vibrant economy, and the current account surplus, and therefore they set policy for everything. Angela Merkel has been effectively the chancellor of the EU for 10 years. That's fine. If he doesn't know, Niederheim, I'll explain it to him. And I'm not, and don't take my bluntness as, oh, dude, you're a fucking idiot. No, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know, and that's fair. Do I think that the arrest of Tommy Robinson, wow, this is coming out of nowhere, finally jarred people into action? Yeah, maybe. I think that's that one step too far. Thanks, Check It. I finally am doing these through Restream, which is why I can't stop that's why I can't block the neo-Nazis. So you have to block the offensive people individually if you're on Periscope. I can't help you with that. because I'm doing this through Restream, which means I'm simulcasting on both Periscope and YouTube at the same time. So you can switch over to YouTube if you want to get away from, you know, the rabble. Yes, German motor company, German automobile manufacturers are a big employer in the U.S. And a lot of those cars aren't imports either. So, unfortunately, I still see them. And every once in a while, they actually do throw me. So they're going to continue to do it. It's fine. I'll just get better at it. Drag 68. Italians didn't vote for Merkel, which is precisely why it's doomed. Nicely said, dude. Nicely said. And yes, so are Kia, Toyota, Honda, Subaru. They all have factories here in the United States. So does BMW, so does Volkswagen. All of it. Yeah, user 13 saying on YouTube, he's saying Putin's cheeky response to U.S. bases in Germany was, "We'll protect you." It was perfect. He is really, really good at what he's doing right now. And Merkel going to see him twice. Merkel going to see him twice is really, really important. What, here on YouTube, Joanne, or on Periscope? If I have the ability to do that, I can. I can probably do that. Yep, just block the idiots, and I'll give probably, I don't know, either TX or I got to pick somebody who still comes on regularly on YouTube and comments, and just get rid of these people as they go on. Y'all have been following me long enough. You know who I'm going to block. So. Kim was invited to Russia by Lavrov, and the Russians said they will be happy to put pipelines through North Korea and South Korea. Yeah, they, honestly, dude, no one's listening to you anymore. The only person you're talking to is me. Why don't you go do something productive with your life? Talking to Grinchy now. Seriously, dude, what's the point? Go do something productive. Have a cream soda, eat a sandwich, do some fucking thing. Sydney, really, sit down. Right? I mean, I'm dead serious, dude. Go and do something productive with your life. Go fight the Jews. If that's that's your bag, go fight them. Fuck off my scope. Stop being a loser. Seriously. You're just a fucking loser is what it is. That's why I don't respond to people that they're just losers. Putin is really good at being a troll. He's better. He's almost as good as Trump. He's almost as good as Trump. Trump is still fantastic. I'm not pissed. I'm just fucking tired of you. I mean, if you get off on this, you're not winning. Yes, Maggie, that was for you. Evening, Buck. You just missed the Midnight Run reference. One of my better ones. Right. Go get a job and make some. User 13 Grinchy is telling you, go get a job and make some babies. Oh, that's right. You're an alt-right fucktard and no reasonable woman would fuck you. There we go. All right. We're at an hour 9. Anybody got any other questions before I bolt? I only do this for about an hour and 15 minutes. I'm not Jewish. Fuck off. Happy to be one. Pepe Escobar wrote an article about the greatest fear, the Russian-German alliance. I think if things went in that direction, it would definitely trigger a world war. Joanne, I think at this point we're a little beyond all of that. I don't think the United States will go into physical war with anybody because they can't. Because everything has to wind up going nuclear. The end of a U.S. anything other than a proxy war. Oh, this is great. Who fucking triggered now. Y'all are calling me a homosexual and a Jew boy and a soy boy and all the rest of it. It's fucking fantastic. I've won. I own the fucking airwaves, you dumbasses. Don't fuck with the Supreme Troll. The Supreme Troll will always win. The neocons will push for war, but it won't work. Will Trump side with Britain versus the EU? Trump has already sided with them, but the problem is that the May government is already sided with the EU, and now they're doing everything they can to scuttle Brexit. So, so there you go. I need to do more movie scopes. Yeah, the problem is that at the end of the day, Maggie, I kind of get paid to do geopolitics. And that's what most people come here to do. And I don't watch enough movies anymore for me to really give a shit. So, anybody else? Pepe Escobar's article about the great fear of a German-Russian alliance, that's, Joanne, to be honest with you, that's been U.S. policy and UK policy for over 150 years. So it's nothing new. That's what we're doing. Everything is about trying to keep Germany from jumping ship and finally just saying, okay, no, fuck that. We are allied with Russia, not the United States. Germans won't do that unless they absolutely have to. They don't want to do that, and they want to continue to try and build a Fourth Reich in Europe. But, you know, UKIP is done, I think. Thank you. I appreciate that, Maggie. And I do like talking about movies. I really do. But unfortunately, this is what most people really want. You know, I got news for you, hon. If I start doing a movie scope, we're the only two people left in the room. So, Lavonda, I haven't seen you on here for a long time. Free Tommy Robinson. Absolutely. Guy got the fucking shaft. So, without a doubt. Now, UKIP, they're done. I certainly hope that I'm more entertaining than Bill Maher. I mean, dude, it's Bill Maher. I mean, talk about an unfunny Jew. Seriously. That was never, Joanne said we should have brought Russia into NATO in the early 2000s. No, we should have disbanded NATO after the USSR fell. Check is asking, will Trump be viable in 2020? Trump's going to win in an electoral college walk in 2020. I mean, he's almost dead hooker live boy proof at this point. Did I enjoy? Okay, so we are going to wind down the geopolitics portion of the evening. Did I enjoy Solo? I saw it last week. I had a blast. My review's up on my website for Gold Goats and Guns. You can read it. I have just not had a chance to go see it again, and I'm looking forward to going to see it again. And honestly, for those of you who didn't like The Last Jedi or angry with Disney or whatever, remember at the end of the day, stories are stories. Storytelling companies write stories for everybody. Some of them are going to be, you're going to like it. Some of them you're not. You're not their customer for everything. While some, and at the end of the day, you have to kind of put that aside. Solo was a very solid Star Wars movie that, certainly as a lifelong like fan, holy shit, dude. It's like, it's all I want. And I'm going to make one last point. Well, I still kind of like Jar Jar because I think Jar Jar's fun. But look, dude, in 1983, Star Wars was done. Okay? Lucas moved on to other things. He wasn't even trying to like milk the IP for money or anything. It was over. He told the story. He was done. He moved on. it wasn't until he decided he wanted to get into education by allowing for Star Wars books, and the role-playing game resurrected the canon for everybody. So, and it was the role-playing game, honestly, that took Star Wars out of the doldrums in the late 1980s, 1987, 88, which I played when I was in college, and and 4 iterations of Star Wars RPG since then have not captured 1/10 of the greatness that was the West End Games D6 system. Like the Ewok movies and stuff, they were terrible. I didn't watch that shit. So, but the role-playing game was fantastic, and then that's when everything started to pick up again. And then Lucas came back to it in 1999, and I never thought he was... I just never had high expectations for episode 1 because George Lucas hadn't directed a movie in 25 years, and he was old and fat. He wasn't young and hungry. It's just that simple. He was a dad at that point. He'd been divorced a couple of times. It's like, seriously, I mean, you just can't do that. You just can't walk back into it and recreate that same thing. Christmas special. I saw it when it played live. I don't own a copy of it. I watched it once. All I can remember as a 10-year-old boy, not enough Princess Leia. All I cared about was I was just all about Carrie Fisher in the white dress. Come on, seriously. So yeah, so Solo is a perfectly competent, if not at times really fun movie, and the relationship with Han and Chewie is great. It's a solid film. On Betamax. I did have Beta, not VHS. I had Beta all through high school. 2 of them. So, yep. I had Star Wars on video disc and then on Laserdisc. And I probably watched it 200 times, if not more. So, yeah, go see Solo. It deserves a far better showing at the box office than these alt-right fucktards are making it out to be. Your husband dresses like Princess Leia for Halloween. No comment. I'm just going to leave that alone. All right. Anything else? Bueller, Fry? Rene Russo and the Thomas Crown Affair. That's a good moment. Did I have the action figures? Dude, I had all of them. The bikini was nice. Don't get me wrong. But I was still talking about 1978. So he was asking about the holiday special. Look, Carrie Fisher was hot. It's just that simple. So. I didn't have the Death Star with the trash compactor. I have and still have my Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, my X-Wing, my TIE Fighter, my Land Speeder. I gave them all to my daughter last year. We dug them out of the thing, and I'm a complete dude. I am an absolute complete mega huge. You should see my fucking comic collection. Okay, dudes, behind you is a copy of The Invisibles, all 90 issues. Okay, seriously, I am a huge nerd. You want to talk about nerd? Let's talk about DC Comics, dude. Not even funny. I was a huge DC fan. Still am. So I only really watch genre. I mean, I only really care about genre movies anymore. I go see maybe 3 to 5 movies a year, mostly the big tentpole genre movies that I care about, and I'm not a Marvel guy. So, Carrie Fisher was fantastic. But a hell of a writer. As a writer, I had I had definite jealousy at her ability to spin a word, to spin a phrase. She was brilliant and an absolutely brilliant writer. When will Putin and Trump finally have a summit? I don't know. Dude, tell Anna that I am the biggest DC nerd in the world. Other than Grant Morrison. And User 13, Marvel is killing their franchise with, they're killing their franchise, honestly, with cookie cutter films that I just don't find at all interesting. I watch most of them on Netflix eventually. Every once in a while, I'll go see one in the theaters, or I'll download one off the Pirate Bay, but I don't really spend money for them. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. The last one I saw in the theaters was Doctor Strange, simply because Camille and I had a night out, and it was literally the only thing in the theater both of us could agree on. I like some Van Morrison. No, Grant Morrison, the comics writer. One of the great writers of the 20th, honestly, one of the great writers of the 20th century. I will put Arkham Asylum, The Invisibles, Animal Man, and Doom Patrol, written by Grant Morrison, up against most of the literature I've read from the 20th century. Yeah, Joanne, I agree with you. I don't think there'll be a Putin-Trump summit until after the midterms. Not at all. No, seriously, I'm a huge Philip K. Dick fan. I'm a huge fan of Jorge Luis Borges, speculative fiction writers like Dick, Borges, Kafka, and I put Grant Morrison right up there with the three of them. That's how powerful his work is. They're still here. By the way, guys, I think you've blocked them all. They're still here. They're still calling me gay. I'm now gay mustache man that fucks goats. It's great. This is the most entertaining comment thread I've seen in quite a while. So, my daughter finally saw Spaceballs the other day. But let's just to wrap everything up in a nice tidy bow. My daughter just saw Spaceballs the other day. Mel Brooks sending up Star Wars. The ultimate Jew who makes fun of Jews, making fun of Star Wars. It was fucking hysterical. Watching my daughter go, that was the silliest freaking thing I'd ever seen. And I still laugh every time Daphne Zuniga goes, they shut my hair, son of a bitch. And then she goes all Ripley on him. It's fucking brilliant. Really? Possible Trump summit with Putin? Holy shit. That's fantastic. Yeah, they really don't, Buck. I'll be honestly, they're just not anywhere nearly as good as GDM rocks, or GDM anal rape, or those guys. I mean, these all right guys are just like, I mean, seriously, they're the soy boys. It's kind of funny at Prince Valium. It's Mel Brooks, right? I mean, I said this. I remember talking about the We're talking about 1970. How everybody's lost their ability to have a laugh in any way, manner, shape, or form, right? That I remember saying to you guys, remember what happened in 1970? Two things happened. One, the Mr. Hilter sketch on Monty Python, and two, the producers with Springtime for Hitler. All right, we've lost our ability to even laugh about and try and process these things. Now everybody's so gaslit and triggered and off in their own little fucking ideological schizophrenic breakdown that they can't even understand. They can't even laugh at anything anymore and just process it and move through into the next thing. Young Frankenstein is hilarious. I know. It's so 2016. Buck, have you not block these guys yet? Because now it's like every time I just look at them and I make fun of them, they go, I'm living in your head. Like, no, you're not. Fuck you. You're a pale reflection of what an actual honest to God troll looks like. Right. I haven't seen High Anxiety, and oh god, I can't remember the last time I saw High Anxiety. I'm still a huge fan of History of the World Part 1. Oh my god. Hey, Josephus. Hey, motherfucker. Oh my god, I love that movie. I have brought you these 15, 10 commandments for all to obey. He's a eunuch. Yes, the Inquisition. I know all the words of the Inquisition, for fuck's sake. Are you kidding me? I love that movie. Oh, it's great. It's better to lose your skull cap than your skull. Oh, Gewalt. No, actually, watched Hail Caesar again the other day with, went over to a friend of mine's, a friend of ours on Monday for Memorial Day, brought a couple of movies in case we didn't want to play any board games. We sat down and brought over Hail Caesar and The Last Jedi, because they hadn't seen Solo yet. So I said, well, let me bring over the movie the only other movie that Alden Ehrenreich's done that anybody may or may not have seen. We popped in Hail Caesar, and I'm watching this movie for like the third or fourth time now. For you guys who don't know, Hail Caesar is an absolutely unbelievable love letter and send-up of 1950s Hollywood as done by the Coen brothers. At the same time, making fun of the entire Red Scare, communist subversion of movies and the whole 9 yards. And oh my god, is Hail Caesar just the funniest goddamn movie. And it gets better every time I watch it, just like all great Coen brothers movies. If you have not seen Hail Caesar, rent it, buy it, download it, do whatever you have to do. It's absolutely worth every second of your time. It's so good. Alden Ehrenreich is so funny as Hobie Doyle, the singing cowboy. Oh my god. Yeah, it doesn't matter. George Clooney's great when he's with the Coen brothers because he's not doing politics. Forget the fact that he's an asshole in real life. Okay? They always make him play an idiot. And it's awesome. You get to watch George Clooney being an idiot on screen. You get to laugh at him beautifully. And he's brilliant at it. And I honestly think that the Hail Caesar confirms for me that the Coen brothers are not libs. They're libertarians who do a really good job of masking the fact that they're libertarian. Yeah, Hail Caesar is just fucking dead funny. The scene with Alden Ehrenreich and fucking Ray Fiennes over that line of dialogue is the damn funniest thing I have seen in quite a while. No, it's not a sequel to The Big Lebowski, not in any way. It's set in 1951. Josh Brolin is brilliant. It's all good. Stay out of the Woolworths. And stay out of the Woolworths. Yes. No. Come on, you guys. I already gave you my Coen brothers moment for the. I just called them a bag of hammers, for Christ's sake. That scene with Ray Fiennes and Alden Ehrenreich over one line of dialogue is the funniest fucking thing you've ever seen. It's really brilliant. I like most of the Coen brothers movies. I really do. I think that they're brilliant. And they're Jews. And they're brilliant. Miller's Crossing may be one of the 10 greatest movies ever made. No one fucks with the Jesus man. No, yeah, seriously. Hail Caesar is lovely. It's just brilliant. So. Oh, you mean in terms of like its tone? It's very similar in tone to The Big Lebowski. But it's probably closest. It's probably, I'd actually say it's more like if you took The Big Lebowski and Burn After Reading and they had a baby, you get Hail Caesar. And then set it in the 1950s, you get Hail Caesar. It's got a little bit of that surrealism of The Big Lebowski with the really rapid fire dialogue of Burn After Reading, with the really dumb people doing dumb shit. But because that's what the Coen brothers do best. But at the same time, the people who are competent in this movie, and this is one of the great things about Hail Caesar versus a lot of other Coen brothers movies where like everybody's an idiot. right? Like the Hudsucker Proxy, where everybody's just a freaking moron, and then you're just watching all these morons run around, and it's great. But in Hail Caesar, 2 or 3 of the characters are actually really competent, right? And Josh Brolin's studio head is unbelievably competent. And I really like Hobie Doyle because he's that guy that he's that movie star who's actually the guy he portrays on screen. He's one of the few, whereas George Clooney is the exact opposite of that. Fargo and the Wood Chipper, so to me, it's just gruesome. I don't see Fargo as a comedy at all. DC, I can't watch it even as black comedy. It's too painful as black comedy. So it just is. At least National Socialism was an ethos. These men are nihilists, Donnie. Greg's asking me, where's the stock market headed? Here in the United States, much higher. Fargo is black comedy, but I can't watch it that way. Like, to me, the ultimate black comedy is the 2 best black comedies that have ever been made are, 3. Sorry, I will say there's 3 great black comedies. The first one was Dr. Strangelove, and because anybody who can make a comedy about the end of the world. Second one is S.O.B. by Blake Edwards. If you've not seen S.O.B. with Julie Andrews, that's the movie where Julie Andrews gets naked. It's fucking awesome. Bill Holden and Robert Preston and Richard Mulligan and Larry Hagman's in that movie. Freaking Robert. Not Robert Culp. Robert Vaughn. Holy shit, is he funny in that movie? They are all hysterical. I have not seen 3 Billboards, but I do love Frances McDormand. I think she's got a cameo in a very small part in Hail Caesar. It's awesome. And then the third great black comedy of all time is Fight Club. And I don't think black comedies get much better than those 3 movies, to be honest with you. But yeah. Sorry, man. They are as pasty white as you can imagine they would be. It's actually really quite impressive. But you should see S.O.B., man. You really should. I agree. So User 13 saying about Fargo that it's funny and it's tragic at the same time because the various characters' deaths are so much that you need the comedy. It's exactly what's missing from No Country for Old Men, where there's no balance. So when you it's why Fargo is a better movie than No Country for Old Men. Oh, I didn't know Polaniak was gay. That makes a lot of sense. That's it. Now I got to watch Fight Club again. But yeah, no, Fight Club is brilliant. Fight Club was the movie that David Fincher was born to make. Yeah, No Country for Old Men is just grim, and I won't watch it again. I like True Grit. I love their interpretation of True Grit. And that's a movie there where the interpersonal, where the dialogue is so good that it creates enough comedy and tension relief that the grimness of True Grit works. I think they get the tone brilliantly in True Grit. Well, it's really, really good. It's one of the last movies I can watch Matt Damon actually in without like want to vomit. Matt Damon, he's been ruined by friggin' Team America. Honestly, Matt Damon. All right, hour and 34 minutes. I'm out, guys. You guys have a great weekend. I will probably not be on this weekend at all. I just don't. I'm not gonna have time. I've got to finish up the newsletter this weekend and get some other stuff done. So, yes, of course the Italians make great movies. I don't really watch Italian cinema anymore. I used to. I haven't actually ever seen A Beautiful Mind. I've pretty much boycotted any movie written by Akiva Goldsman after Batman and Robin. Maggie, I will. When I get a chance, once it shows up on either Netflix or Amazon, I will. Okay, you guys take care. You have a great night. Have a wonderful weekend. Even you alt-right fucktards. Keep your stick on the ice.